This is 15. Thanks for joining us. I'm Luke Coddy. Joining me is Dan Wade. Hi, Dan.
Hello, how are you?
Not bad. I almost cracked then during the intro with your silly face.
That's just my face, but thanks.
This is the podcast where we review the first 15 minutes of free films to help you out and do all the hard work for you so you have a film just in time for the weekend on any streaming service. Well,
Any streaming service.
Luckily, Dan, as Mr Moneybags, pays for them all, and I leech off them all as well. So, the three films we're going to review this week are
Bags of money.
Alien, Free Guy, and Chippendale. Just before
All
we get
can be
into
found on Disney Plus.
Just before we get into that, just a reminder for you guys listening at home, if you click on the link in the bio, you can go stream across to our YouTube page where you can actually watch us if you prefer.
See us sweating our tits off because it is warm.
Yeah, it is buoyant. I'm thinking my choice of powder blue was probably a mistake. I should have gone dark colours to hide the sweat pits.
Sweat pits. Pits of sweat. That's right, Pete, folks. He's got crevices for days.
So, last week, Spiderhead only just beat out Burnt, and we decided to watch that in full for this week. Dan, why don't you kick us off with Spiderhead?
Well, I thought it was rich with opportunities. The setting, the plot, the characters. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. This had a lot of potential, didn't it?
Did it deliver for you? For me, no.
No, I think we're going to park our cars in the same garage here. But yeah, it did have a lot of potential.
Get out.
But it feels like it focused a little bit on the wrong areas. It tried to be a bit too philosophical, and it never really pushed on for me.
Yeah, it actually felt unconfident for me. I don't think it was, or perhaps it was the director, but I don't think they were happy in this genre because they kept flip-flopping between tonal shifts, which we kind of mentioned in the first 15 minutes. We kind of picked up on that, and it really did continue. There was a moment where a spoiler alert, a lady kills herself because of the drugs she's on in this institute. And that was a moment where it really could have turned the screw and become much more insidious, which I think this film should have become. But it never did. It kind of pulled back at that point. And then there was an element of sort of Shaun of the Dead where it becomes a horror or a thriller, but it's comedy. And it didn't really work. And and that uncertainty of where are we sitting tonally or thematically fed into my kind of enjoyment of it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. I love your point of it veered towards comedy, but it hadn't put any of the groundwork in for it to go off in that direction. So tonally it felt bizarre. Like,
you saying Poohfinger didn't do anything for you, Luke?
Let's get back to Shitfinger. I like that you clean up your language though. Let's stick with that suicide scene though, because that was the point for me where it was, I don't know, it was an inflection point, wasn't it, in this film, where you have something at stake all of a sudden, all the stakes are raised, and like you say, it's almost as if when you sort of touch a electric plug socket and you sort of retract, like it didn't really stick its finger right in there again, which makes a bit of sense.
That's why your hair's so frizzy today, is it?
But I like your comment on the director. Like, we sometimes do this with films, and we imagine if this film was in the hands of Jordan Peele or Guillermo del Toro. Do you know what I mean? It would have been so much darker, way more dystopian. It would have got rid of all this weird philosophical sort of waffle, and it would have really just been a lot more of a serious film. And I wanted it that tonally for me.
Yeah, definitely. I did think, having said that, I didn't think it was all bad. There were elements of good filmmaking here. I really enjoyed this use of flashback that the director was doing, where we were kind of seeing memory, or rather, we were kind of seeing the plot explored through flashback but the flashback growing. So first of all, we're just in the car, but then next time we're in the flashback, we know that there's somebody else in the car. Next time, again, we know that there's actually the third person in the car. But again, it didn't do enough with that. It didn't push it enough. So I kind of enjoyed it, but it didn't go far enough for me.
Yeah, I'll pick on something you said there. I like this idea how it tried to explore the past, and because everyone in there is singular and no one really knows anything about each other, they live communally. It's this sort of open plan prison, but the one thing they have to themselves is their past, and because they are the narrators in that story, they tell it how they see fit. And so obviously you don't reveal why you're in prison, so it's one layer at a time. That was quite nice, but it wasn't enough to save this film. Like it's in this forgettable limbo for me, where it's not quite good, it's not quite bad. It's just a film that I'll forget in a year's time that I watched.
Yeah, I totally agree. And which is a shame because actually the cast is quite acclaimed. Not, I mean, Cole, yeah, Miles Teller, fantastic. We're going to love him. Chris Hemsworth, okay, come from popular culture, but a big name, right? We know he can do stuff. So for me, and actually Miles Teller especially was really not involved in this. This felt like a paycheck film for him because he's he's fantastic. We rate him, we love Whiplash, as the listeners will know, but he was brilliant in that. And he was just run of the mill, wasn't he? He was blink a bit, get a bit cross, get a bit angry, get a bit, sad, and then bugger off.
Yeah, I feel like he was trying to do this laconic, languid sort of acting style, which obviously like Marlon Brando does, Ryan Gosling does.
Brando.
Yeah, and I get that, but for this story, he has to have the weight of it on his shoulders, and it really took off with Chris Hemsworth, didn't it? Like Chris Hemsworth doesn't quite hit the mark for me enough in this film.
No.
But to be fair to him, he really gives it his
trying.
all. He really is, and he has comedic timing. He has some moments which are actually quite chucklesome.
And he's also, I think he's got the physique. Like we've spoken before about how we struggle with him playing this kind of nerdy guy. But he does have the physique that if he was to go mean and go hard and go angry and violent, you'd kind of be scared. Like he can flip on a knife. He's got the charisma to be a sort of sociopath in that way. But to be a bit limp, as he kind of was in this, didn't really do enough. You touched earlier upon the philosophy. I'm quite interested to explore that because I found that morally this film didn't do enough. The ending, they sail off on a boat. They've escaped from Spiderhead. But they're both still murderers and they're both still criminals and they've not redeemed themselves in any way. It's not like they've saved, babies or they've averted world disaster. All they've done is, nothing, have they? Escaped.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The sort of the idea that the audience. I think this comes back to a tonal shift for it. I think there's a huge disconnect between the filmmaker here and what he expects the audience to react. I think he expects you to be completely enamored with this leading couple, which you aren't. Like, I think it's much more interesting to be tentative of them and be wary of them, but it doesn't really. It acts as though you are completely rosy-eyed for them, and that I think that really shows itself later on in the film, especially in this. Let's get to this shit finger scene when they're trying to escape, right? For me, it comes after...
And there's a mob, right, isn't there? There's a mob follow. And so that's what I was kind of meaning about this sort of... They're all supposedly on this kind of control drug. So they're all doing what they're told. And now they've been told to stop the guys who are going to ruin their life. So there's a big mob chasing them. They're running. First of all, they encounter the guy who's on the eating drug. And he's about to attack them. And then they give him the keys to the pantry. So he thinks, oh, better deal. And that didn't really sit with me. And then go...
Awful.
Terrible.
I mean, yeah, this is the same time when you're revealing Shitfinger and they're playing Hall and Oates and people running around slapstick style. And this literally follows adjacent to a scene where we're meant to feel distressed. So does the filmmaker think we're sat here distressed, if we're really invested in the film, upset about what we've just seen, showing real pathos for the characters, and then the next scene in hysterics? Like, both of them were watered down, both of them were awful.
But they're also polar opposites, aren't they? So yeah. You've got to have real flip.
And unless you're a really accomplished, prestigious filmmaker and who know exactly what you're doing, like you're not Tarantino, this dichotomy doesn't work in a middle-of-the-road film. It just feels it just throws the audience completely off, and it makes you start thinking about other things. So I was literally sat there thinking about some of these actors, like how did they get hired? Did they think this work was good? And when you pull back from a scene and you're thinking that about the characters, that's a really bad sign.
And also... like it's a really tense comedy, right? So comedy is about kind of extremes. So it's a really tense moment. So we're going to put Pooh Finger in there, right? So I can see why that works. But like, it's only Pooh. Do you know what I mean? Like, as gross as that is, one puncher, get over it. There's a huge, enormous giant in this film who, I don't know if you remember, but he had headphones on. Did you see this bit? When Chris Hemsworth's character was saying, oh, go and attack them, he had headphones on so he couldn't hear what it was being told. Okay. And I thought that was going to play into it. And he is obviously, we've seen him already. There's this been kind of moment of, are they going to do the sex drug? And it's all kind of a bit tense and very, So I thought that was going to play into it. But instead of having what could be a, let's call it like a boss fight, of actually this really big tough guy and kind of, is he going to, he's on deranged and on these drugs. We don't. We go for Pooh Finger, who's just an old lady with shit on her finger, wiping it on the walls.
I hear a sequel.
I smell one.
My big thing here falls down to screenplay, to be honest. I think it always, and for me, it usually comes back to that anyway, but it feels like it got to a stage where they almost ran out of ink, paper, like ideas, however you want to phrase it, and they just resorted to being an incoherent mess. It was just hectic. Coherent. They went back to a fighting scene, which never works. Fighting scenes I struggle with. There's nothing really to play for there. And
no action scene has ever worked where there's been fighting.
Yeah, sorry, prejudicial. I meant for myself there. Yeah, Bond is on its last legs. But
from the fighting.
The screenplay just fell apart, and this film unravelled, like to the nth degree in the final third. It really fell apart.
So that's just carry the 3, and then n equals 3 by degrees. Just a bit of maths for their people.
But yeah, that's kind of where I sit on this film. Like, it had potential, and for an hour and 10 minutes, it's actually good. I think it's genuinely good, and I was invested. And then it's so bad at the end, it's abysmal, that where do you sit on a scale for that?
Well, it's forgettable, like you say, and unfortunately, that's kind of the worst. Like, better to be remembered for being bad than being unforgettable, isn't it?
Not if you want to keep working in the industry, I guess.
Well, I suppose, yeah. I give it 5 out of 10.
Yes, exactly the same.
Run off that milk.
5 out of 10. Okay, right, let's get to this week's films. So like I say, we're doing Alien, Free Guy, and Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Looks down, checks notes. Let's get to the first one then, the 1979 horror sci-fi classic from Ridley Scott, Alien.
I accidentally watched them in reverse order, but I don't mind, upending my notes.
Thank you for not minding. If only we had a schedule. Okay, right, let's start with Alien then. This is obviously a film with huge weight, and you're aware of its cultural importance. And for me, it starts
late to the boat, aren't we both?
Well, I have actually watched the first 50 minutes before, and I've tried to watch it, but I've been sort of shut down before. It's one of those where I said I'd watch it with someone.
Luke is also a robot, just in case you didn't
know. Okay, why don't you kick us off? I moved away from the mic there as though it was help. Let's hope people weren't driving.
Though it was help.
Okay.
For his grammar.
Right, I'll kick us off for this. For me, these first 15 minutes absolutely flew by. I absolutely love this. I loved its sense of place. This came from a real filmmaker. Like, most filmmakers come from documentary background, and you're taught the most important thing at the start of the film is sense of place, sense of character. And I got that instantly with this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, we're spoilt now, obviously, so you have to put yourself in that time frame of the late 70s, but this would have been incredibly futuristic. It almost felt like 2001 Space Odyssey, but not to the degree. Kubrick's architectural design, interior design, that is staggeringly good. And it has that feel to it. It feels modern. Even
authentic is what I actually put. I really agree. I'm totally on your side. One thing... There was so little dialogue for me, and that is such a great testament. If you can captivate someone with very little talking, sound and image, that's sort of a brilliant skill in a film.
Especially if you're trying to build tension.
And that it did it so well, because we kind of, and we know, we've been around, we know that eventually the alien's going to burst out the stomach. So we kind of are and it's called Alien, Christ's sake. So we know something. Yeah. So we know something's coming. So to just keep us in that suspense and that slow in movement in space, it was brilliant. And just to build tension through silence, through the music was fantastic. Yeah, everything going for it. But I just want to talk, my kind of biggest point from this is the movement of the ship in space, because we see a lot of the ship in space. But then also the crew. I feel like the movement of this is really powerful, because the ship is moving inexorably slow through space. And the crew are inexorably, like, just leisurely. They're kind of casual. They've been woken up from hypersleep. They feel comfortable. And it's that foreboding nature. They're so off guard, and yet the ship is moving so slowly that you just know that there's no outrunning this. If something gets on that slow-moving ship, because it's moving, I'm sure it's moving billions of light years, but for us, it looks like it's moving slow. So if something's faster, it can catch it. And these guys in this ship are moving so slowly and so leisurely that they're off guard. And that suspense of what's coming and how badly are these guys going to get got, it's just brilliant.
No, I love that idea of this glacial movement. I 100% agree with that. And also just the setting of this is genius. Like to put horror and sci-fi and merge the two is so clever because I mean, especially here, you're on the outer rim, aren't you, of the atmosphere and the universe.
Sure.
But this is such an untapped, unknown world. So it makes so much sense. It's naturally dark as well, which always helps. And also, it almost if something's scary, you take it more seriously. Do you know what I mean? The like palpable emotions are real ones, and almost for me, I'm not a sci-fi fan. I struggle to, like you said, you just used the word authentic, didn't you? Authentic for a sci-fi film. I mean, that's testament enough for the first 15 minutes. That's all it had to do. That even the little sound effects of the computer, which sound a little bit odd, sound a little bit like Sega Mega Drive, but they add to the ambience of the whole piece. I really like the first 15 minutes of this.
And we've spoken before on this podcast of what kind of the perfect 15 minutes is and what points you have to hit. And actually, this ended at 15 minutes of them they've been told they've got to go down into the atmosphere and contractually they're obliged to go and help. And so the tension is there, but we haven't seen the alien. There's no mention of the alien. There's no, what is, well, we know there's a distress call. So it's intriguing ending. And isn't that better to set this, isn't that the perfect 15 minutes to set a real sense of foreboding in your audience, to set a mood and then go, and this happens? Or do you know what I mean? That for me, I was like, oh, I really want to carry on. Like just a minute, watch 16 minutes. New podcast idea, by the way.
I 100% agree, and you mentioned how it's not exactly formulaic. It's sort of within itself. But something I loved, which I've seen in other horror films, is like when you see in The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's this idea of in horror when there's a group, you know at some point you're gonna have to rely on each other. So you by creating tension in the group, by literally having this upstairs downstairs, and having this idea of bonus, and money always makes people go weird. Always does. It's so clever to make this class divide on the ship, because at some point one of the upstairs is going to need someone from the downstairs, and they're going to debate whether to help them, and that split second might mean that they get got.
Same note, and that's done through dialogue, and that dialogue felt so natural. So we've just critiqued Spiderhead for screenplay. This is the complete opposite. Really subtle dialogue, fantastic 15 minutes worth of screenplay with what's on the page is counting, but it's not clunky, it's not awkward, it's fantastic.
And we talk about screenplay, but whenever you have a limited screenplay, the director is front and center, and Ridley Scott, I mean, this is very, very impressive work from Ridley. Like, I know why he's so arrogant now. Well, I see him on these like Hollywood Reporter roundtables, and he brings up some horrible big blockbuster based on ancient Egypt, like he did right whilst he was half asleep. And he's so arrogant. And I mean, Blade Runner's exceptional. This seems like it's going to be incredible. I sort of get the kudos now.
Yeah.
Very good. But
Dan, will we watch that?
more important, Chippendale. More importantly, Dan, I think you've mentioned this before on Sci-Fi or whatever it was, but Dan, does the science check out? I remember you saying you're a stickler for the science.
The science checks out. I ran the numbers, I've crunched them, and that bleep bloop was a blue bleep.
That sounds like it wouldn't have checked out then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the second film. We've got a good trio of films here. So up next is Free Guy. This came out last year. Directed by Sean Levy, who's been known in the past for doing stuff like Night at the Museum, Cheaper by the Dozen, so that's family genre films, which is interesting to take that with a director, because this feels as though this might be a little bit more adult for him. What did you think of this one for the start?
I was fully expecting to really dislike this, and I didn't.
I knew you. I told you we should do this one. It starts pretty fun, right?
It does. I found it really quite dynamic opening. I'm still not sure about this, and I've put it as humour in inverted commas. The humour feels a bit saccharine.
Yeah, it's constantly sideways glance. It's like almost sort of Oxbridge, aren't we cleverer than you? all the
Yeah.
time sort of humor, which I get. Like for me though, the main part of these 15 minutes was this is an idea worthy of a film. Where you see so
Yes.
many films and you think, what am I doing here? This is futile. This is boring. But they're merging the two mediums of
Hmm.
film and gaming, which we've seen in the past with like Tron, Wreck-It Ralph. Like it does work. It can work. Yeah, exactly. And, Guns
Kanza
Akimbo.
Kimbo.
And it's also merging this idea of avatars. People are now living their lives online. They give their Fortnite characters personalities, different skins, and but instead of all that, you're focusing on the extra. You're focusing
Yeah.
on the non-playable character. That's really clever.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good idea for a film.
It's kind of like Matrix for kids,
Hmm.
this, because we're also jumping in and out, aren't we? So we're not only in the game world, but then we jump out actually again into the human world, and we realize that there's more going on to this game, and that there's kind of corporate forces and a lawsuit going on. So an interesting, at the very least, like it's more to this than just an avatar of, an NPC turning rogue and go. So there's a bigger plot, and is he going to learn sentiency? Is it, I kind of Matrix for kids.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that. Like they are physically adding another layer, at least
mm,
one, with this idea of the lawsuit, and then also having this design team, like a bunch of nerds trying to work out what's going on in the game. I like that these two levels of existence. That because at one point you always sort of it'll catch your thought and thinking, oh God, I wonder how this is being taken by the person
the
that's
other
playing the
way.
game or the people that are watching the game. That's always quite interesting.
And I found it very engaging. I did. It was predictable. Like I can see where stuff's going to a degree, or at least I have a pretty good idea.
Hmm.
But yeah, engaging nonetheless, enjoyable, not too serious. I can see there's going to be some profound, or at least attempted at profound moments. And I liked how we have this idea of sunglasses, don't we? So sunglasses characters are playable characters, and then the other guys don't. So he can put the glasses on and off. And I hope they explored that option of him, perhaps I'm being able to go somewhere, because I don't know if you saw when he put the glasses on, there was an out of bounds area, and I wonder if he, as an NPC, is allowed in that out of bounds area, whereas a playable character won't. So there'll be some sort of element of working together, and I hope it doesn't go down the doing it for love route. I hope it's more about love being part of that, but perhaps being a kind of key to unlocking more for this. What's he called? Guy, isn't he? He's just called Guy.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I know. I agree with that. I liked this sunglasses idea. It's really clever. It's distinctive. It's meant to be. It's cool in inverted commas. Like I love that idea, and it separates people very quickly. For me, I got a lot of Truman vibes here. Like I
okay,
really
yeah,
like
yeah,
Truman Show. It's probably not going to be on the same degree as Truman Show. Don't get me wrong, but it's this idea of an ant just jumping out of line. Do you know what I mean? You become wise to the world, and that bank scene where he becomes a playable in a sense. Like he takes
yeah.
ownership of his life. He doesn't just fit in, and everyone sort of slowly rises off the bank floor after the bank robbery has just gone wrong or
And I'm
right.
amazed to know.
Yeah, I love those
Yeah, right.
moments. People become like you're peeling back the world. It's in front of you, and I just peeled the corner of my vision, and it's something else behind it. That's
Yeah.
very clever. I like that a lot.
No, I had a
Um,
lot of time for this actually, which surprised me. Like I
should we?
say, because I was fully expecting this to be a kind of kids' version of Deadpool that was just Ryan Reynolds kind of pushing his "aren't I funny" agenda, which
Let's get to that because that's my big issue with this film.
okay,
So I am so fucking bored of this Ryan Reynolds shtick. I just struggle. This idea is he's offbeat, he's a bit of a simpleton, and he always plays comedically, and he's always the narrator. Every
yeah,
frigging film, Christ, is the narrator. Is it because he gets two paychecks or something?
I don't
Like,
know. Yeah.
I'm not here for this Ryan Reynolds shtick, and people treat him like very highly. I understand he
Yeah.
picks films, but he just all his films are built around him. No one ever else shines in his films. The films are he's the nucleus, aren't they, of his films?
It's like Kevin Hart, The Rock. They have a kind of
Yeah. I mean, he's
thing in
better,
this
obviously.
action world. Yeah, oh god, he's loads better. But also as well as them, he's kind of doing Tom Cruise. So Tom Cruise was always doing Mission Impossible. He now always seems to be doing these offbeat kind of comedy films, which is fine, but it's not. You're self typecasting, and let's actually see a bit more. You know, this film could equally work as well. Like Jodie Comer's in this film. I know she's a good actress. She's going to be good in this. But like, why not bring her into it more? Why does it have to be the Ryan Reynolds show with her? Like, do you know what I mean? It's ego, isn't it? It boils down to.
Yeah, I don't know. He does come across as a nice guy. I don't know if that's. So I don't know. I feel like films on production see that he's a seller, and so they're happy to make him the star. And I think they're always a bit. It's always like a side order of Jodie Comer.
Is he just
Do you know what I mean?
mainstream, Luke? Is that what it is?
He's so mainstream. He's not remotely art house, is he? One thing I'm a bit worried. I read into this a little bit, and the writer wrote it in 3 weeks.
Okay.
Always a bit of a worry. That. Just gonna say.
Engaging but predictable.
Well, that's it. I try to put down like this starts really well, but I was thinking, okay, why am I worried? What's going to happen here? And I just have a feeling it's going to this creativity is going to be lost a little bit. Like we've seen that we had the impact now of it becoming a 3D world and put sunglasses on. Is it going to become a bit formulaic? It is. Right? There's a reason we haven't watched this film till now. You know what I mean? There's a reason I haven't seen incredible reviews about this film. But first 15 minutes, good. Can't slag it off too much.
No.
Okay, let's get on to our final film then. This week. So this is literally just come out hot off the press, Dan.
Hot off the press.
This is Chippendale Rescue Rangers, directed by Akiva Schaffer, who's one part of The Lonely Island, also starring another part of The Lonely Island, Andy Samberg. Where's Yorma? I think Yorma's the other one. These guys have worked on Hot Rod before, which is quite a fun, creative, interesting adult film. This seems a little bit more directed at children. It's flipping both camps.
So, weirdly, in this film, the overhead narration by Andy Samberg and this breaking of the fourth wall that we had, I really enjoyed. And it kept me engaged and it felt fresh. Obviously, it's not, but it felt enjoyable. Maybe it's because I love cartoons. And so we're kind of putting we're in this world of cartoon and human.
Space Jam-esque, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Free Roger Rabbit.
But I also liked how we were kind of a step further than that. So we've got a cow as a teacher in teaching kids. We've got a wolf.
It was the wrong cow though, then, wasn't it? They could have chosen a different
cow.
It wasn't
Blue Cow!
Absolutely peaked the mic out there. Don't worry, I'll sort that out, guys.
I definitely
I
think
agree.
CBeebies have a lawsuit against us for the amount of times we've mentioned Blue Cow.
I think they'd waive that just for that it's still relevant. Oh, is this relevancy? Anyway, but no, I agree. Putting them in an adult real world, it makes more opportunity for this meta social commentary that it's trying to go after, which I really like.
Yes.
It's good. And it's making this the antithesis of who are they against, these humans. I like these blurred lines.
Yes. I also enjoyed to see Roger Rabbit brought back.
Yeah.
That was good.
It was. Like, there was a few funny moments in this. Like even when they're acting and before they can cut, obviously they've got to allow the scene to roll on, and they're doing this prolonged fake laugh. That was really quite nice. And also, we talk about references. There's a lot of reference points in this, and even the one about Ugly Sonic. Do you know the backstory of that? The idea that they were going to do a live action version that actually felt fresh to me. That felt like shit. This did come out last week.
Yeah,
it was funny showing his teeth and talking about his teeth and zooming in.
Yeah, no, it was. But then I was thinking, but we criticise films for doing pop culture references.
We criticise films for doing bad Trump jokes. That's what we criticise films for. When they were already way past.
What about the Minions joke in Moving Cities one? What was that called?
I can't remember. That was diabolical. But that's another one. Like the train had already left the tracks on that, and they're still making jokes about Minions. Like this felt a little bit.
At least it was taking swipes at its own kind. One thing I did have a problem was I wished they hadn't made him 3D. And I know they kept him going, oh, your 3D surgery was really good. But that just felt like, aren't we clever at making things 3D now? And
I kind of liked that. You need to show the differentiation between them. So Dale has gone off and he's tried to find this stardom. Like it felt very David Brent after The Office when he's sort of doing these horrible things and he's looking depressed. And like Chip has gone for an honest career. I mean, an honest life, got a dog who happens to be a massive live action dog.
Yeah,
thought that was funny.
Jokes like that,
that
they
was
were
good.
Fantastic.
Like, and it's to show the differentiation, and he's trying to hold on to his youth by going 3D animated. Will Chip eventually also go 3D animated? Probably, because it's going to be a bit weird having them next to each other for the entire film with the different.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I wish they'd kind of kept it authentic. Like, I don't mind having 3D animated, but I would have liked to have encountered that. and seen that play out in this kind of it felt, you know, in that I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it was in that world of, you know, film noir but blurred lines again. Yeah.
But it's 2020, Dan. Kids aren't going to watch it, and that's the issue I have
Maybe
with this
that's
film.
probably-
Is probably the
yeah.
biggest one. Is I mentioned Hot Rod in the preamble for this, and Hot Rod's really funny, risky, sort of 15 rated film.
Risky? Firewater?
But this wasn't at all. It starts off and you think, oh, the social commentary, this is going to be an adult film, and oh my god, it's going to be like Team America. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm here for that. But it's not. It reverts back into a kids' film pretty quick.
Would you watch Chip Fuck?
What?
That's Team America, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the entire plot of Team America.
Pretty big part.
I think which bit? Yeah. Oh. So check out his penis size. Also, did you like the whole double act tension? Love
Yes.
it. Did it hit a bit close to home?
It did, a little bit.
But it had genuine pathos there. I liked that. That worked. And they're trying to go off and do
The
each
moment
other.
where don't answer that phone. Don't answer that phone. I'm sorry. Boop.
Yeah.
It's can you link the Peppa Pig Thug Life? It made me think of that.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that is a good one. This film, like, it didn't have much plot. We didn't see too much. Maybe towards the end of the 15 minutes, we get an idea where it might go. Is it just gonna
Flounder is missing. Don't know if you saw that on the TV.
I didn't see that. I was.
Flounder is missing. And then, did you see Wagadoo Nebby?
I didn't see that either.
No, he wasn't in that, but then there was an Australian character, so...
Oh, I forgot who Wagadoo Neddy was then. I mean, none of the audience will know who that is. But my point is, if this is going to be...
Yeah, what is your point?
A social critique the whole way through... Yeah, thank you. A social critique the whole way through, and jokes, eventually, you know what I mean, it's going to start peaking and plateauing out, and we say, okay, this has to go to another level here. Is that going to happen? Do we have much idea of plot? I guess it's going to be a friendship-driven idea, isn't it?
Yeah, brothers coming
Both
back together.
regret each other's lives, maybe, or... I don't really know. It's
Imagine
a bit
if
sad,
it ended
isn't
like
it?
Sausage Party.
I can't remember how that one ended. Did we even watch that to
Orgy.
the end? I don't think we watched that.
Orgy.
Are you sure that's not like one of those where you go and...
Oh, sorry, no, I'm thinking of something else I watched.
Yeah, you're saving me. I was about to go down that exact same rabbit hole. Mine involved the rabbit hole. No. Okay, so Chippendale. Any other final points of Chippendale?
I did actually really enjoy it, but I think it's because it's cartoons.
I think I enjoyed it, but I think it's limited. I would say that.
On my new ticking system, I gave it 2.5 ticks out of 3.
So, oh, right, okay. No, I was going to explain it, but don't
An
bother explaining
alien
it.
got 2 3/4. So, pretty close.
Okay, should we go for Alien then? I'm actually quite excited to watch Alien.
Yeah. But I'm also definitely going to watch both other films as well.
Are you really? Do you
Yeah.
know, very soon, by the way, we probably should have let the audience know this as well. Me and Dan are going to do our best films of the noughties list. So I am grinding film tape right now. I'm watching all sorts of weird stuff. I watched a Romanian film last week, Korean film the week before, got a Hong Kong film lined up for after we finish today. Dan, you were watching what? Chippendale?
Chippendale, Free Guy, all films that came out this year. So well and truly in the 20s.
Okay, Dan, thanks so much. I can't wait to watch Alien. I'll see you next week. So
I am
finish his
buzzing
script.
to watch Alien. What?
I should have filled for longer there than asking you to speak while you're still chowing down. It's got lumps in
Showing
it.
down. Just to throw a dog a bone, as it were. New show on Netflix: How to Build a Sex Room. Fucking bizarre.
I saw this advertised. I haven't got onto it yet, but I obviously will.
Weird. And the guy in it, let me tell you, he was not as into it as the woman. You can tell
Always the case.
Isn't it always?
And usually in the scenarios when it's these sort of couples, you think that woman even survive on a sex swing. You know what I mean? A bit too hefty. Right, Dan, let's not go any further. Dan, I'll see you next
swing.
week.
See you next week. Bye bye.